So Genesis is the new clan to come out of the most recent set. With the release of Genesis, selective soul blasting has now been added to the game. This is because there are specific units that need to be soul blasted to take advantage of the clan. The goal of this free-to-play deck is to use the selective soul blasting we now have access to gain advantage in crit pressure and multi-attacking. What I was really excited about when making this deck was that the Break Ride unit for Genesis is a double rare, and one of the better grade 3s for the deck is also a double rare. Genesis's Break Ride is Heuko. Her ability is that when she is rode upon, if you are in Limit Break 4, that unit gets plus 10k, 2 of your units get plus 5k, and your Vanguard gets the ability Soul Blast 3, draw 2 cards, and put 1 card from your hand into the soul. So it's a +1, but that specific card you put into the soul can be very useful. And while she is just on Vanguard, she has the ability that you soul charge 1 and she gets plus 1k. The soul charging with her does come in handy, but the plus 1k does have its uses. If you are going first and your opponent is on a 9k grade 2, when you use Heuko's swing, if you put a 7k behind her, 11 plus 1 plus 7 equals 19, which will then hit over the 9k Vanguard over perfect numbers. So you'll have a guaranteed second hit that turn. And then the unit that will allow us to gain some pressure is Mizuha. When she attacks the Vanguard, she gets plus 3k no matter what, which is nice because she is a 10k body, which is the only drawback of her. She then has the Limit Break ability that on attack, she gets an additional 5k and a crit for a Soul Blast of 3. So a goal of the deck alongside this is to try to get us enough soul to use their abilities. Both of the abilities that our Vanguard is going to be activating, mainly at the same time, is going to be 3 and 3, which is 6 in total. So we need to be soul charging so that we can activate in increments of 3. This is when units like Sahumin and the grade 2 Artemis come in handy because they allow us to soul charge in large quantities. Now, to go alongside all this soul blasting, we play 4 copies of probably the most important unit in this free-to-play deck, which is the Witch of Frogs. She has the ability that when she is soul blasted, you can counterblast 1 and superior call her. She then gets plus 3k, which is really nice because then that makes her a 10k attacker or booster. So using Frogs with Mizuha and Heuko soul blasting, that means we now have access to crit pressure and multi-attacking all in the same turn. To add consistency to this deck, I am playing the Vivid Rabbit as our starter. She's just the counterblast 1 put into soul, check top 5 for a grade 3. Her going to soul is obviously useful because we're going to be soul blasting a lot. We do have a lot of flexibility in our counterblast because neither of our Vanguards care about counterblast. The reason we really need her is because we really need to make sure that we hit Heuko and then Mizuha and not the other way around, otherwise we will not be being as effective. I'm playing 4 Witch of Cats and then 1 Angel, but you can feel free to mix up your playset of them. I just think that the on-play soul charging is more important than just the 1 recurring soul charge. I then play 1 Broom Witch to add some consistency in our draws. She does use a counterblast of 2, and we do want a little bit of our counterblast for Sahumin, so them fighting over counterblast does happen. So I'd much rather have the soul charging than the drawing. That being said, you should feel free to play more copies of Callaway because the drawing still does come in very handy, especially in making sure that our ride is going to be activating in the way we want it to. I'm playing 4 copies of Witch of Wolves. When she is on rearguard, she's a 12k attacker. When she's on Vanguard, she's a 15k attacker. So if we have to ride her on top of Heuko, it's not the end of the world versus having to ride Mythgard. Mythgard can only be a 12k attacker at all times. And then having the 10k vanilla, having these 9 big boy attackers makes it so that we don't have to commit a booster. Not having to commit a booster means that when we superior call the Witch of Frogs, she now has a booster to then be able to hit the Vanguard for additional attacks. I think when I first built the deck, I was playing something like 4 crit, 5 draw. But then after seeing how consistent it was to get Mizuha's crit off, I took out the crits because I needed the draw because the deck doesn't plus really. The draws make it so that we have an easier time playing our rearguards because you really don't want to have Heuko's +5 only going to 1 unit. You'd much rather have it going to 2 rearguards so that our multi-attacks are more likely to hit. So as I've said previously, Heuko is like the bread and butter of the deck. The 10k power isn't really that necessary because Mizuha is already swinging for quite a large number by herself. It mainly kind of works with Iwana, which I'll talk about later. But really, it's the selective soul charging that she gives us in her Break Ride ability. What I mean by that is, let's say we go for our Vanguard swing. It'll then ask us which of the 2 abilities we'll want to activate first, either Heuko's Break Ride that we have now on Vanguard, or Mizuha's. We will use Heuko's ability first to allow us to draw 2 cards and put a card from our hand into the soul. This is so that if we have a frog in our hand, we can now place it into the soul. This is so that when we activate Mizuha's soul blasting, we now have another chance of having a frog in the soul. This flexibility of being able to call out multiple frogs, even if it's just one, means that we can have a way easier time getting past their PGs, because Mizuha is going to be like chewing up those PGs throughout the game because she is constantly swinging for crits. Something to watch out for is that timeouts and decking out are very real in this deck. This deck can be really requiring of some mental fortitude when you're first learning the combos. You will notice you will have a low deck size on kind of those last couple turns. So once you get to a good amount of soul, just don't overthink it. Don't think that this is like Dark Irregulars where you need all the soul possible. You just need it in increments of 3. So you need 3, 9, 12. I don't think you really need to go above 12 because at that point you're probably going to start hitting that like deck out possibility. And you may have possibly used up all your counter blasts, so then when you go for a frog play, you might not have any there. Just kind of like feel out the deck and like the kind of numbers that you'll need. And like around game 3, that's when you'll start to just kind of like feel it out and not need to like use up your whole timer. So other budget options for the deck is the rest of the Artemis ride chain. The grade 1 gives you an easy way of hitting the grade 2. And the grade 2 having the grade 1 in the soul means you'll soul charge an additional 2 units, alongside the grade 0, which gives you another chance of hitting the grade 2. I personally chose to keep them out of the deck. This was so that I was incentivized to ride a frog on first turn, and to give me the flexibility of playing the Vivid Rabbit. I don't think that the Artemis ride chain is any weaker though. It's just kind of the play style that I was going for. So I don't think playing the Artemis ride chain would be any worse. So you can just play the grade 1 Artemis. So feel free to take out like maybe the angel and then 3 of the cats and then put in 4 copies of her. And you can still keep the bunny. Artemis's grade 1 does not need the grade 0 in the soul to be doing any of her effects. So you can still go and get you that grade 2. Now upgrades for the deck. Ravens. Which of Ravens is the best card in Genesis? She allows us the multi-attacking that frog gives us, in addition to not having to make like an aggressive play because she can still be an interceptor on the next turn. This means when we're going for a end game push, it's not like our final turn, because worst case scenario, we will still have an interceptor. I absolutely think if you're going to be crafting for this clan, Raven is the way to go because she's also played in the future iterations of the deck. Earlier I mentioned Iwamama. She in combination with Himiko is kind of like the coolest play because Himiko is going to be boosting all your units. Iwamama is going to be like blowing up all their front row, so you're going to be able to swing like 3, 4, 5 times at their Vanguard. No, sorry, it's only 4 swings because the bad thing about her is that her Soul Blast is during the main phase. So that does mean you can still activate Frog or Raven, but it is not going to be during the battle phase, so it's not going to be a multi-attack. But you can still do a 4th attack because the Himiko ability activates during the battle phase. She's still an amazing unit for the deck. She is really hefty, and she doesn't do anything before the Soul Blast 6, because her Soul Blast 3 of getting plus 5k is not that useful. I see a lot of people playing her as like a 1-of, and then playing 4 of the grade 3 Artemis. And I understand why, because Artemis has a Persona Blast, which is new, where you can look at the top 5 cards and then like switch her out basically. And she is one of the units that gives you plussing in hand. I just don't really like her because the deck is already kind of slow on its own. So having this other unit that doesn't give any form of pressure on the board besides powering herself up, I think I'd much rather play Iwamama. So my final thoughts for the deck. When the set first came out, my friend had a lot of packs saved up. There was no real clan in it that he was that excited for, and he didn't want to have to wait a long time for the next set to come out, so he was looking on Vanguard 0 meta and just kind of looking over what units that Genesis gets later. And after reviewing some of the triple rares, he got really excited, and I started telling him like how I was planning on building this free-to-play deck. So he went in, opened his like I think 100 plus packs, and opened like a pretty good selection of Genesis units. So he and I have been like playing it back and forth, bouncing ideas off of each other, and it was cool to kind of see us get excited about a clan that a week ago neither of us really gave a shit about. Also, like the attractive waifus probably helped in that decision making. To be honest, like from what I heard from the Japanese meta, that this deck kind of sucked, but I was gladly surprised to see that even this free-to-play version is very consistent. The fact that you can build this deck very easily, especially with the rental system going on, gives you both access to a break ride and a unit that can gain access to a crit very easily. It's just like wild, especially after like playing and discussing so much over like Tachikaze and bugs. I have to do so much like hoop jumping to even be playable, And Genesis is just naturally a very playable, strong deck. The big brain plays can be kind of scary at first, but like I said, like the more you play it, the more like less reading and like big brain plays you have to do, because it'll just kind of become second nature of like Soul Blast this, Soul Blast that, call out the card, this card needs a booster, this card hits that card, this deals that much damage, this swings there. Still, PGs can ruin your day, just like any other clan. So I think there's going to be a lot of people out there who have a lot of Genesis cards laying around in their collection, but didn't really feel like building it. I think they should give it a try, especially with this rental system going on right now. And if you like it, play it more. If you don't like it, skip out on it. Wait till the next rotation where you get like even more crazy Genesis stuff. I'm sorry I don't have the summer skin yet. I only have like 3,000 cakes. Sorry. If you want to support me, I'd really appreciate it if you can just hit up the triple-rare.bigcartel.com. Follow the social medias for the brand. Follow any of my social medias if you'd like. I'm mainly active on Twitter. So are a lot of my Vanguard friends. I never know how to end these. That's all I got.